Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370, the vanishing. Like and subscribe. On March 8, 2014, at exactly 12:41 a.m., Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, bound for Beijing. On board were 227 passengers and 12 crew members. Families, business travelers, 2 Iranian men traveling on stolen passports, and Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a veteran pilot with over 18,000 flight hours. Within an hour, the Boeing 777 would vanish from radar screens. Within days, it would become the greatest aviation mystery of the 21st century. And 10 years later, despite the most expensive search operation in aviation history, costing over $160 million, we still don't know what happened. 239 people disappeared into thin air, and somewhere deep in the ocean lies the answer. This is the story of Flight MH370. The passengers settling into their seats that night had no idea they were about to become part of history. Most were Chinese nationals heading home. Others were tourists, engineers, artists. Among them was Paul Weeks, a New Zealand engineer who had just started a new job in Mongolia. Before boarding, he gave his wedding ring and watch to his wife, telling her to pass them to his sons if anything happened to him. There was also a group of 20 employees from a tech company traveling together for a business conference. The flight attendants went through their routine safety demonstrations. The pilots completed their pre-flight checks. Everything was normal, everything was routine. At 12:41 a.m., the massive aircraft lifted off the runway, climbing into the darkness over the South China Sea. For the first 38 minutes, everything proceeded exactly as planned. The plane climbed to its cruising altitude of 35,000 feet. Captain Zahari and his co-pilot, 27-year-old Fariq Abdul Hamid, communicated normally with air traffic control. At 1:01 a.m., as the plane was about to leave Malaysian airspace and enter Vietnamese airspace, the co-pilot made a routine call. "Good night, Malaysian 370. It was the last thing anyone would ever hear from Flight MH370. And here's where the mystery begins. Less than a minute after that final radio call, something extraordinary happened. At 1:21 a.m., the plane's transponder, the device that communicates the aircraft's location, altitude, and speed to air traffic control, stopped transmitting. On radar screens, Flight MH370 simply vanished. Air traffic controllers in Kuala Lumpur tried to make contact. Nothing. They contacted their counterparts in Vietnam, asking if the plane had checked in with them. It hadn't. They tried again, and again. Silence. But here's what the public didn't know at the time. What wouldn't be revealed until days later. The plane didn't actually disappear. Malaysian military radar, which is more powerful than civilian radar, tracked an unidentified aircraft making a sharp left turn. A complete reversal, of course. The plane that investigators believe was MH370 flew back across Malaysia, passing directly over the country, before turning northwest and flying out over the Andaman Sea. Someone had deliberately turned that plane around, but the military didn't realize what they were seeing at the time. They thought it might be MH370, but they weren't sure, so they didn't sound the alarm. For hours, as families waited at Beijing airport for a plane that would never arrive, MH370 was flying in the opposite direction, heading into the vast emptiness of the Indian Ocean. By the time anyone realized what had happened, the plane had vanished into one of the most remote regions on Earth. When dawn broke on March 8th and Flight MH370 still hadn't landed, panic set in. Families gathered at Beijing airport, holding signs with their loved ones' names, desperately seeking information. Malaysian officials held press conferences, but the information was confusing, contradictory. At first, everyone assumed the plane had crashed in the South China Sea. Shortly after the transponder stopped working, a massive search operation was launched. Ships and aircraft from multiple countries scoured the waters between Malaysia and Vietnam. They found nothing. Then, 5 days after the disappearance, Malaysian authorities revealed the shocking truth. The plane had flown for 7 more hours after the transponder went off. How did they know this? Because even though the transponder was off, another system was still communicating. The plane's satellite communication system, basically the aircraft's connection to the internet, was still sending automatic handshake signals to a satellite every hour, like a phone checking in with a cell tower. These signals didn't contain GPS data, but engineers could analyze them to estimate the plane's distance from the satellite. Think of it like echolocation. By analyzing these satellite pings, British satellite telecommunications company Inmarsat determined that MH370 had flown south deep into the Indian Ocean for hours after it disappeared from radar. The last ping was received at 8:19 a.m., 7 hours and 38 minutes after takeoff. Then, nothing. This meant the search teams had been looking in completely the wrong place. The actual crash site was thousands of miles away, in one of the deepest, most remote parts of the ocean on the planet. As the world tried to make sense of what happened, theories exploded across the internet and news media. Mechanical failure. Some experts suggested a catastrophic electrical fire or decompression event could have knocked out communications and incapacitated the crew. But this doesn't explain why the plane made deliberate turns and flew for 7 hours. Hijacking. 2 passengers were traveling on stolen passports. Could this have been a terrorist attack? But Interpol investigated and determined they were Iranian asylum seekers trying to reach Europe, not terrorists. Pilot suicide. This is perhaps the most controversial theory. Some investigators believe Captain Zahari deliberately crashed the plane. They point to several factors. He was experienced enough to disable the aircraft's communication systems. He had practiced similar routes on his home flight simulator, and there were reports of personal problems in his life. But his family and friends vehemently deny this, saying he was a dedicated professional who loved flying and had no reason to harm anyone. Cyber hijacking. Could someone have hacked the plane's systems remotely? Aviation experts say this is technically possible but extremely unlikely with a Boeing 777's systems. Hypoxia. A sudden loss of cabin pressure could have caused everyone on board to lose consciousness, leaving the plane to fly on autopilot until it ran out of fuel. This happened to Helios Airways Flight 522 in 2005. But again, this doesn't explain the deliberate turn. The truth is, without the black boxes, the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, we may never know for certain. The search for MH370 became the most expensive in aviation history. Ships equipped with underwater drones scoured 46,000 square miles of ocean floor in the southern Indian Ocean, an area roughly the size of Pennsylvania. They were searching in waters up to 20,000 feet deep, in an area with underwater mountains, trenches, and sediment that could hide debris. For 2 years, the operation continued. They found shipwrecks. They discovered underwater volcanoes. They mapped areas of the ocean floor that had never been seen before. But they didn't find MH370. Then, in July 2015, something washed ashore on Reunion Island, a French territory in the Indian Ocean, 4,000 miles from the suspected crash site. A man was cleaning the beach when he found it, a large piece of an airplane wing covered in barnacles. Experts examined it and confirmed it was a flaperon from a Boeing 777, and there was only one Boeing 777 unaccounted for. It was the first confirmed physical evidence of MH370. Over the next few years, more debris washed up on coastlines around the Indian Ocean. A piece of engine cowling found in South Africa. Part of a cabin interior panel found in Mozambique. A section of the wing found in Tanzania. Ocean drift analysis confirmed these pieces could have floated from the suspected crash site, carried by currents over thousands of miles in several years. But here's the heartbreaking part. Even with physical evidence confirming the plane crashed in the Indian Ocean, even after searching 46,000 square miles of ocean floor, the main wreckage has never been found. In January 2017, after nearly 3 years, the official search was suspended. But some people refused to give up. In 2018, a private American company called Ocean Infinity launched a new search, using cutting-edge underwater drones that could search faster and deeper than ever before. They searched for 3 months, covering an additional 43,000 square miles. They found nothing. However, in recent years, new analysis has given investigators hope. In 2022, British aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey used a technology called WSPR, Weak Signal Propagation Reporter, which tracks disturbances in radio signals around the world. By analyzing historical radio data from the night of the disappearance, he claims to have tracked MH370's exact flight path. According to his analysis, the plane is located in a specific area of the ocean that hasn't been thoroughly searched yet, about 1,200 miles west of Perth, Australia. Other experts are skeptical of this method, but Godfrey and his team have pinpointed a location they believe is accurate to within a few miles. In December 2023, Ocean Infinity announced they were ready to launch another search operation using even more advanced technology. They've proposed a no-find, no-fee arrangement. They only get paid if they find the plane. Malaysian officials are considering whether to authorize this new search. After 10 years, there's still a chance we might finally get answers. While investigators and engineers debate theories and search coordinates, we must remember 239 families have lived in limbo for a decade. Malaysian officials are considering whether to authorize this new search. After 10 years, there's still a chance we might finally get answers. While investigators and engineers debate theories and search coordinates, we must remember 239 families have lived in limbo for a decade. In Chinese culture, there's a saying, "If you don't see the body, the person isn't really dead." Many family members have struggled with this impossible grief, unable to mourn, unable to move on, unable to get closure. Danica Weeks, the wife of Paul Weeks, the man who gave his wedding ring to his wife before boarding, has spent 10 years raising their 2 sons alone, never getting a chance to say goodbye. The Chinese families formed a support group, meeting regularly, comforting each other, demanding answers from Malaysian authorities. Some have never given up hope that their loved ones might somehow still be alive, even though logically, they know it's impossible. Sarah Basie, partner of American passenger Philip Wood, has spent years investigating the case herself, refusing to accept the official conclusions. For these families, MH370 isn't a mystery or a puzzle. It's 239 people who went to the airport, kissed their families goodbye, and never came home. Every birthday missed, every holiday spent wondering. Every time they see a plane in the sky, they deserve answers. They deserve to know what happened. Flight MH370 vanished on March 8, 2014, somewhere over the Indian Ocean. Despite the most extensive search in aviation history, despite satellite data analysis, despite pieces of wreckage washing ashore across thousands of miles of coastline, we still don't know exactly where it is. We don't know definitively what happened in that cockpit. We don't know why someone turned the plane around and flew it for 7 hours into oblivion. But somewhere, 2 to 3 miles beneath the surface of the Indian Ocean, in complete darkness, lies a Boeing 777 with 239 people still inside. Their families are still waiting. The world is still searching. And one day, perhaps soon, we might finally solve the greatest mystery in aviation history. Until then, Flight MH370 remains a ghost, lost somewhere between the last good night and the vast, silent ocean. If you found this story as haunting as I did, leave a comment with your theory about what happened. And if you want to see more deep dives into aviation mysteries and true crime cases, subscribe and hit that notification bell. This is a story that deserves to be remembered. 239 people deserve to be remembered. Like and subscribe for more stories.